Hi everyone and welcome to Beyond Tomorrow, a new series from the New Zealand Herald in partnership with MYOB, where we tackle the unprecedented business environment affecting thousands of small and medium-sized enterprises across New Zealand as the world battles to slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. I'm Will Trafford and every day I'm joined by Ingrid Cronin-Knight, MYOB's country manager. Hey Ingrid.
Hey Will, it's great to be back again with you.
And we're also joined by Richard Liew, the founder and editor of NZ Entrepreneur magazine. G'day, Richard.
Yeah, g'day, Will. And hi, Ingrid. Good to be here, guys.
Well, team, today we're talking about bouncing back. We've got MYOB data that more or less shows roughly 60,000 businesses will close their doors each and every year in New Zealand. That is about as many as actually start up. Ingrid, this was all before COVID-19 was added to the mix, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we're in unprecedented times. We've said it many times, but the macroeconomic conditions and what that's doing to our economy and our small to medium sized business owners and their ability to pay their way and get paid is really concerning. And so we can expect to see, I think, an increase on those numbers.
Richard, one of the things we keep talking about on this show is how hard small and medium-sized enterprise leaders can be on themselves. When you think of those numbers, I guess it's a little bit bizarre that we beat ourselves up so much, right? Half of all businesses are failing, and some of the best business leaders in the world have had, numerous failures.
Yeah, so we all sort of know the stats, but it's a different experience when it's your baby, it's your business. That you've spent potentially years, blood, sweat, tears, maybe you've raised money, you're leveraged to the hilt, and maybe you've got people relying on you by way of staff, employees, your broader business partners, not to mention your own family. So when it does happen, I'm talking about failure, when you have to either close a business, or you're forced to close or lose one, pretty hard not to take it personally. There is a lot on the line for the average small business owner out there. And I think that empathy can be it's kind of hard to connect with unless you've sort of started a business yourself and then lost one.
Yeah, Ingrid, one of the things I like that you're sort of, we had a yarn about before was, before we talk failure, we need to talk what we keep sort of talking about, right? Which is this notion that you can maybe pivot your business or look at your business really critically before you move on to that stage where you maybe kick it in the guts.
As a past cricket player, you're always encouraged to play every ball on its merits, and what we're facing here and the merits of it, we need to critically evaluate. But what you need to do is take control of all the essentials around your cash flow, get in touch with your debtors and creditors and find out where your position is at. See if you can get any government stimulus and to help that out. And that'll give you the facts there. Talk to some advisors, I think, but that'll all give you the facts around what the scenario looks like. And as you think about your ability to pay your way over the course of the next, not just this 4-week period, but into 6 or 7 weeks or 8 weeks. When is the time when you find that you might not be able to meet your outgoings? That's the critical time for you to take stock and then really look at what your options are.
Yeah, I wonder, Richard, maybe you can sort of run us through some of the signs that not only is the business failing, but it's all over. That is not going to turn around. The
answer is, have I still got any cash? And as Ingrid pointed out, what's my runway looking like? Quite possibly you've only got 4 weeks worth of reserves that you're going to keep going. Some businesses, if you're a bit more fortunate than that, may be able to dig into a war chest of sorts, or maybe raise some money. So it's really going to be that cash flow that determines, I think, how well your business is doing. And for a lot of them, it's just going to be terminal.
Yeah, I mean, Ingrid, you sort of talked about before this notion of has the market fundamentally changed, right? It's hard to imagine any time, at least in the last couple of decades, where a market could have changed more, right?
Yeah, I think that right now we've got clarity that we're in lockdown 4, and that's new. It's only 2 weeks into that. But what's really unclear and uncertain is what changes in the future and how much does business free up at level 3 level 2, and then does it go back to level 3 or level 4 again in the future? Those things are uncertain for people. Certainly, everyone is taking a really good hard look at where they're at, and I think once you've got those facts, that allows you to make some decisions for yourself. But you also need to not just weigh up what's going on with your business, but also your personal life. I know for many business owners that I talk to, they don't think about things just around their people, but they feel like they're paying for their people's mortgages, and so they take it really, they get sleepless nights because they are really concerned around what's going to happen to their employees, how they meet their obligations, and that they're personally liable for that, and they feel a sense of failure with that. So when you're taking stock, I think you need to take stock not only of where the business is at and whether demand has changed and what the future is going to look like, but also your personal well-being, your personal finances, and your relationships and where they're at, and have a look at those two things, and then do an evaluation and go, look, can I see my way out of this or not?
Richard, the reality is businesses fail, right? How important is it just to rip the bandaid off instead of this sort of slow-going process, which can cause a lot more damage?
This is where we need to be able, as business owners, to somehow be a bit detached, if you like. They say it's better to fail fast than fail slowly and just draw it out. I think there's a real danger for a lot of business owners, especially if you haven't been through something like this, that you've got so much of your personal psyche invested in it and being a success and seeing it through, that that can actually potentially put you in a worse position if you don't really stop and clearly think about, and be a bit objective. What is the realistic situation here? Again, even if I can go and raise some money now, and potentially, take personal borrowings, so that I can support my business. Maybe, if I could do that for another few months, I might be able to fight my way out of it. I suggest being very careful before putting yourself in that position, and seek financial advice, seek professional advice, talk to the people out there. You are not your business. I think this is key. Your business right now is just one reflection of who you are as an entrepreneur. It's a manifestation at this particular time of your creativity and that entrepreneurial spirit, but it is not you. Now, you can come back and start another business, but you have to be around to do that. And could be just a time that we go, right, we need to hunker down, face up to what's happening right now, rip the bandaid off, as you say, and plan our comeback, just bide our time, rest, reflect. You will have learned a lot, and we need you back in the game. So play the long game.
Hey, Ingrid, I wonder if you can talk to me. Some people will be wondering, I guess, because they will have never gone through this, the practicality of closing down a business. And can you talk to me about this notion of trading while insolvent? Because I guess some people won't even know what that means and won't even know that you really can't do that.
Within the Companies Act, it has a couple of statutes there that talk about a director's responsibility. And look, although I'm not an expert, you're obliged to ensure that your company is an ongoing concern as it trades, or you take appropriate actions against that. And yes, there's been some safe harbour provisions put in place, but I guess what I'd encourage leaders to really consider is, even in light of that the intention there is to allow people not to make knee-jerk reactions and to carefully have some space to consider whether or not they can navigate their way through this next few months. But ultimately, what you'd always need to do is, can you meet what your obligations are? Some organisations will be taking on more debt to be able to cover this period because they can see that they've got a really great business that's going to thrive afterwards. I mean, I would say something like, as I've said a couple of times, hairdressers, I think, will flourish the moment this is out. There'll be some pent-up demand. But there are a whole bunch of other businesses where demand might be thwarted for a lot longer, and it might be a lot harder for them to serve clients and certainly serve them in the same way. So if they can't see a way out where they can actually change the way they do their business or deliver their goods and services, just as Richard has said, I would really encourage you to consider carefully whether or not you put either personal finances in, and make sound decisions around whether or not the projection for the future in your business is there.
Richard, I'd love if we can to talk about sort of coming through the other side of maybe one of these horrendous events that you had to shut down your business. Many entrepreneurs talk about failing forward. Can you sort of maybe give us some hope?
Failing forward is a really cool concept, and it's one I encourage all business owners to try and get their heads around. And basically, what that says is that there's two types of failure. There's failure that is going to put you out of the game forever, right? And then there's failure in which you are able to learn, and it becomes part of your toolkit, if you like, because you've got experience, you've seen some tough times, you know what it's like, and you've been able to come out the other side and reflect and see that maybe the things that led to that failure, but you're still able to come back in the game. If you are looking to potentially wind down your business, really think carefully about whether or not that's a smart thing to do, in the long-term picture of it. It may not feel like it right now, as opposed to doing yourself a financial industry that could actually be the end of your entrepreneurial career, or cost you your house, or worse. In terms of I guess bouncing back, I just suggest again, take this time. If this is the end for your business right now, it's not a reflection on you personally, okay? And use this time, reflect, plan your comeback, right? Because when we get past this, and when we, it will pass, we're going to need every entrepreneurial Kiwi out there to come back harder, more creative, more innovative than ever. And we need you to be part of that story.
Ingrid, one of the notes that I love here is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I guess we're talking about the rebound here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when businesses fail for a number of reasons, and it could be that consumer taste change. We wouldn't be potentially watching the Tiger King over this weekend if it wasn't for the failure of Blockbuster. And so I think, but there's a whole heap of reasons as to why that business itself may fail, which may not be caused by direct decisions you've made. It's in the macroeconomic conditions that have happened there. But you, as a leader, we need to be brave and to realise the skills you've learnt around running the business, and what that allows you to do is to think about how you solve other problems going forward. The big service that we can do is to honour you as an individual and the skills that you've brought and you've learned, and your creativity and innovation, seeing that, okay, this has failed, but it's not necessarily as a result of direct decisions you are. And even if it is as a result of direct decisions that you've made, you can still move on and make and learn from that. I know that, like last year for myself, I had one of the toughest years I've had in a very long time, and I learned so much from that as a leader. And so if we can reframe it from being like a failure on ourselves and be focused on what can I learn from this and how can I make this a better me, I think you can gain that. But there's a process for you to go through with that. And I do think in this environment, reaching out to get some support, whether from different advisors or to help you through the situation, will be critical as you go through and navigate that.
Ingrid, what an amazing answer! And you even managed to get Tiger King in there. And I like the other thing about the business environment. I was covering Blockbuster when it died, unfortunately, and they had the option to purchase Netflix just a couple of years before, rest in peace, they dropped off. So there's a story about analysing your market there as well. You're ticking all the boxes.
Well, there you go. It wasn't intentional, but what I do think is, in this sort of technology and disrupted environment, what's really cool from my perspective is that we're all learning skills around how to connect and communicate digitally. At MYOB, we deal a lot with accountants and bookkeepers, and for a long time we've been talking to them about how they can be more current with their clients, not just do compliance at the end of the year. And the fact that they're now out of the offices and they're running Zoom meetings, they're learning how those skills around how they interact. And the great thing about that from an accountancy and bookkeeping perspective is that they can have more richer discussions and supporting business owners at a more frequent basis that are going to help the overall New Zealand economy flourish. So I think that there's some great things and skills that are coming out of this lockdown.
Yeah, Richard, one of the questions I guess I had for you is we know that New Zealand is a massively entrepreneurial country, right? But I wonder, you have entrepreneurs and then sometimes you have leaders of SMEs, right, who might have done the same thing over and over again. Are our SMEs entrepreneurial enough? Like maybe they won't all be the next Fisher and Paykel or whatever it is, but does there need to be a bit of a pivot in the SME market for them to be perhaps as entrepreneurial as some of these leaders of some of the big startups?
I think it's about vision. The thing with startups, and especially high growth tech-based startups, in terms of what we call a startup and our understanding of them over the last 10 to 20 years, is, they are starting out with the intention of being global players a lot of the time from day one. And we've got to contrast that with typically how the average small New Zealand business starts, which is as a way for the owner to make a living. Could we do with bigger thinking SME business owners? Absolutely. No doubt about that. Does it mean that you're not as entrepreneurial if you are a small business owner? I don't think so.
And in terms of these new sort of innovative ideas and pivoting your business, Richard, you were speaking before about an initiative sort of crowdsourcing some of those ideas in New Zealand.
Yeah, so just yesterday actually, the New Zealand startup ecosystem and a bunch of the incubators and innovation hubs from around the country collectively announced the launch of what they call Hack the Crisis New Zealand. And that is all about an initiative. It's a 48-hour innovation challenge calling for New Zealand entrepreneurs, startup enthusiasts, anyone who wants to get involved, helping to come together and create either business ideas or solutions that are going to help New Zealand businesses and wider society sort of bounce back post-COVID. So that's called Hack the Crisis. And if you go to hackthecrisis.nz, you can find out a bit more about that if you want to get involved.
What I recommend, if you've never, as a business leader, been involved in these entrepreneurial hackathons, there's a huge amount of energy, and you learn a vast amount of skills and on the fly, actually testing out and evaluating them. And so it's a great way to get involved to learn some skills which you have to pivot your business or you're thinking about starting up a new one. But what I would say, just as we close this out, Will, is that we've seen more demand than we usually see by startups looking to get access to MYOB. So that gives me a sense that actually there's a lot of people that are thinking outside the square and wanting to start up businesses, which is great that we've got that energy. And now it's just about bringing in some of those disciplines about making sure that you pick the right market. There is a market there for you, and that in this constrained environment, you'll still be able to meet the needs and solve the problems. But the last thing I want to say to our business leaders is that, the entrepreneur, like many people find that they don't have their most successful idea unless they've failed, one or many times. And so if you can see your way through this, because it might be dark times right now, but if you can see your way through it and there is light at the end of the tunnel, you'll come through a better leader that can make a greater difference. And we need you to help us navigate our way and our economy out of this.
I wonder if you're facing some of this at the moment, Ingrid. Is there a place where business leaders can go to sort of get help navigating through maybe wrapping things up?
Look, I think if you're actually facing on the brink of insolvency, then we would encourage you to talk to both your accountant or business advisor and potentially your lawyers, just to dot the I's and cross the T's on that one. And ultimately, you'd have an insolvency expert appointed, I think, to help you through that process. But in terms of can you pivot your business or take the goodness and move it? There's a whole lot of business mentors that are out there. You can get them from Business Mentors New Zealand. You can get them through the Chamber of Commerce. There's a number of people through accelerator hubs that we mentioned before in your local region that you could reach out to that would put you in touch with a business coach that could make a difference.
And I guess, Richard, your core message is we need you, right? We need the entrepreneurial thoughts and the entrepreneurial leaders as we sort of come through this.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's we need to innovate our way out of it. And you know, there's a cool Japanese proverb I love. It's simply fall down 7 times, stand up 8, and that to me encapsulates the entrepreneurial spirit. And you know, the Kiwi entrepreneurs out there, we know there's grit, resilience, and determination. So hang on to that. Again, we need you.
All right, well, what an awesome way to leave it. Ingrid Cronin-Knight, MYOB's country manager, and Richard Liew, founder and editor of NZ Entrepreneur magazine. Thank you both so much for all the really helpful advice. Remember, we want your questions from home as well. In future episodes, we're talking tax, all the initiatives the government is pushing forward to alleviate some of the pain being inflicted by this crisis. We also want to hear some of your solutions that maybe you've come up with to help out your own business that might be valuable to some others in the small and medium-sized business community. We're a small bunch after all. Email those through to video@nzherald.co.nz. Until next time, happy Easter. I'm Will Trafford. Bye for now.